The Livestream Code and Rating Administration has rated this online event PG. All ages admitted. Please be kind and stay on topic.
Good evening and welcome to The Good Stuff Live. But this is a special edition of The Good Stuff Live. This is episode number 6 and something that we like to call RetroPALooza. And that means I've got 3 very special guests who I'll be bringing on in just a moment. But first, I want to just assure everyone, if you've come here thinking that we're going to talk about music, movies, and mostly TV from decades gone by, well, you've come to the right place. And I want to welcome folks. I'm going to go through this rapid fire real quick. Hopefully, I'll get most everyone here. But first, I've got to thank my executive producer. So, have an executive producer this evening. It is beloved community member, channel member, Tracy Roth-Myers. Thank you so much for the super chat ahead of the live stream tonight, Tracy, and of course, for your continued support. It is truly appreciated. All right, let me get to the chat real quick here, and let's see who's been hanging out. We've had folks hanging out for the last hour or so, which is awesome. Love to see that kind of engagement, and just love to see the conversation. Kenneth Wilkinson, welcome. Daryl Johnston, welcome. Channel member Justin Aylett, a.k.a. Braidwood Inn. Good to have you here. Let's see. I'm going to miss some folks, and please don't get angry at me if I do. We'll try to catch you later on when we ask you guys some questions. Adrian James, good to have you here. NJ Max Rocks, it is awesome to see you in the chat tonight. Channel member Tracy Roth-Myers, already mentioned you as executive producer of the show tonight, but great to have you here with us. Daryl Johnston, I think I've said hello to Daryl already. Tug, the unapologetic geek, such a treat to see you in the chat. Thanks for hanging out. Jerry Gillespie, a.k.a. Mark Gerard, welcome, welcome. Custom God, good to see you. Let's see who else is here. Danny Hooley is with us. Channel member Lance Chaffin, Danny Staten, channel member John Collins. We're working through this quickly here. Let's see who else. Oh, Tom McCluskey, the Hungry Jerk. Good to see you in the chat this evening. I see BK was in the chat prior to the start of RetroPALooza tonight. I think I said hi to Danny Hooley, but I'll say hi one more time. And channel member Jason Goldtrap, always great to have you with us. Gloop Trekker, thanks for joining us this evening. And what we will be doing throughout the evening, of course, we're going to be talking about TV crushes tonight. And I think we all have TV crushes. And now I'm going to state up front that, I have one primary crush in real life, and that's my sweet wife. But growing up, we've all had these crushes, and that's what we're talking about here tonight. Channel member Zuperplex is here. Gary Carpenter's here. Let's see who else is with us. Rosalie Azarita, I haven't seen you for a while. Good to have you with us. Constant Cherry, welcome. Marianne Lockwood, I love that little emoji where you wave. That's great. Thanks so much for joining us. Melissa Foster's here. Lyle Francis Delp is here. Boy, are we getting a big crowd already. The Nostalgic Pod Blast, welcome. Wajamin, good to have you here. And let's see who else. We have Robin Masters, welcome. Channel member Sean Innes, thanks for hanging out with us tonight, Sean. By the way, we will be giving away a copy of Retro Fan Magazine, so stick around. We'll do that, 30, 40 minutes into the live stream tonight. Willie Bowen, welcome. Look at this. Larry Potter, you keep doing this. God bless you. I've got a super chat here from Larry Potter. Says, hello, always try to donate. Well, you are very kind, very supportive. Let me just find a quick way to say thank you. No Welk tonight, folks, unless it's specifically requested. We'll go with a little Shatner.
No, I thank you. And again, I thank you.
Thank you, Larry. That's very kind. And I didn't do anything for Tracy. Let's throw a little Dukes of Hazzard your way, Tracy. I feel whenever I have an executive producer for the live stream. Thank you for doing that. Kind beyond words is the way I feel about those kind of things. Indy Spoats here. Welcome. Good to have you here with this evening. And I think I'm caught up. So with that said, let me go ahead and bring on my guest this evening. I'm going to start by order of arrival. So first off, we've got none other than, you know what? Do I have that? Hang on one second. I haven't uploaded that yet. I need to upload that. Hang on one second. I'm going to just do something really quick if I can. A nice little introduction for this gentleman. Do some quick clicking. There it is. See if I can bring this one on. Try this one more time. StreamYard tells me I have too many files. So I got to delete a file before I can load a file. All right. Let me bring on Mr. Rod Serling to introduce my first guest. Yeah, believe it or not, Rod Serling, the man, the legend himself. Here we go.
Picture, if you will, a channel whose sole objective is provided the best in vintage sci-fi horror, the best of modern humor, and the worst Rod Serling impression in recorded history. And you found it in the Thrash Pondo Zone. A message to be filed under M for monetization, here in the Twilight Zone. Dave, that is absolutely priceless. I love that. And thank you for taking the time to download. That was absolutely great.
You know what? Here's the deal. That is not the worst Rod Serling impersonation ever. As a matter of fact, if I didn't know, if I was just watching that first little bit of it, other than it's kind of lip syncing, it's not great. But that sounds like Rod to me. I think you do a fine job of Mr. Serling impersonation, and quite frankly, I might ask you later on at some point to. I may need to employ your skills for that.
I would be honored, Dave.
Awesome.
Honored.
So let me bring on our second arrival. Pat, I think, was next to arrive. Pat, good evening. Welcome to you, good sir.
Hey, gang. How y'all doing?
Pat, my man. So good to see you, bro.
You know, I liked M. M for monetization instead of McCormack. And did I say Golden Rage of TV enough on my identifying badge there?
There's always room for more.
Happy Labor Day, guys.
Yeah, happy Labor Day to you. But before we do all that stuff, we got to bring on our final guest, Mr. Barry King. Welcome.
Who?
It's the Retro Crew. Hello, fellas.
Barry, awesome to see you, man.
It's this way.
I was going to send you my David Hasselhoff Baywatch impression on the beach that I've recorded on video for my intro, but we'll wait and let you do that next time.
Please do. I can't wait for that.
It's one of Barry's brushes. He doesn't want to admit that.
Wow. Cannot wait. So how was Labor Day weekend for you fellas? You do anything fun?
Laborless.
Go ahead, Barry.
Laborless. No labor, which was great. Great. I did absolutely nothing today, which was fun.
That's perfect. That's perfect. How about you, Pat?
I definitely labored less.
As you should. As you should. And Bob?
I actually had to work Friday and Saturday, but made good money both days. That being said, I had yesterday off, and I took Mrs. Thrash out for an early anniversary dinner, and we had an absolutely splendid time.
Oh,
Even she
happy
had a good time.
anniversary.
And she notoriously has bad luck in restaurants. Notoriously, we always get the servers having like an emotional breakdown. And it was everything went fine. We had a wonderful server. We wanted to adopt him. Our meal was phenomenal. She had an absolutely phenomenal time. She's finishing her doggy bag right now as we speak, actually. So we had an absolutely splendid day. And then today, I had a day off too, and today was my day of rest. So
Nice.
half the weekend was labor less.
Good, good. Hopefully you spend some time, at least part of the laborless day, catching some nostalgic television, something good, some form of entertainment, whether it's reading, a movie, or good old TV. I know I certainly I earned the nickname Couch Potato today.
Pluto TV was my friend most of the day today. I really spent a lot of time there today.
Yeah, love that streaming service. It's, I mean, I don't love the commercials, but that almost in a way kind of feels nostalgic because it's what we were all used to growing up anyway, was the commercials. And yeah, firing up the Happy Days channel or the Andy Griffith channel and just letting it run's quite kind of fun.
Gives me a time to take that nature's break, like you always have to used to do.
Exactly. I love it. Perfect. Yeah. It gives you a moment or two to actually be productive and then settle on back down. Perfect.
I'm almost ready for a nature break, but we just got started. So
I've got some commercials later on for us, Pat. I'm always thinking, as you get older, you try to figure out when that next break is. And so, yeah, we have some vintage sponsors that are going to help us out in a bit.
Well, great to see you, my brothers.
Yes.
And
It's
that's
good
what
to see
you are.
you all.
It's RetroPALooza.
Love it.
These are the Retro Pals. I'm the loser. All right.
There are no loosas here. There are no loosas here for
With a
sure.
Z.
Retros and pals.
That's right.
Yes.
All retro, all pal, all the time.
No loser.
All right. So we've got a fun topic. I can't remember which one of us decided or threw this one out. And then we actually had this long conversation about have we talked about this before? We maybe have, like, on a very small micro level broached the topic, but never dedicated a full live stream to the topic of television crushes, which I just think is so much fun. I mean, and if you guys want your moment to profess your love to your sweethearts, clearly, please understand there is one lady and one lady alone in my life that is the most important, my crush forever. But it is fun to talk about TV crushes.
I agree with you, Dave. I want to profess my love for the lady that's closest to me and can't wait to see every day. And I want to say that about her right now. And I also want to say hello to my wife as well.
Oh, Mrs. BK. I get the feeling that she may giggle about that.
She's not here, so let's can get away with that.
What we do on Labor Day.
That's
Stays on Labor Day.
That's right.
I love it. All right, fellers. So let's get rocking and rolling then. I have here, we're going to start moving chronologically. And this decade might be a little bit tough, but I think we should start right where it all began, really. I mean, I think TV was in the late 40s, but just barely. Most people didn't have it in their homes. It's really a product of the 50s. That's when television really invaded America. And of course, there were some lovely ladies on television way back then. So, fellers, and I'm going to move clockwise. So that way. No, that way. I can't do this.
No,
This
we'll go counter.
thing, Bob's way.
That would be the Bob way. Yes.
Yeah, the Bob way. Do you have any TV crushes from the 50s?
Yes, they'd have to be retroactive because bear in mind I wasn't even born till '67.
Right. These are folks
Yeah,
we
so-
probably saw in
so
reruns
I
way
do.
back.
I actually do have a retroactive crush from the '50s, and this one's a slick one because it actually could constitute '50s and '60s.
Okay.
It is the immortal Annette Funicello.
Ugh. You know, it's a good thing you doubled up, Pat,
You
because
took my answer.
there we go. Lovely Annette Funicello. She was really one of America's sweethearts. Walt certainly thought she was the cat's meow and did everything he could to make her a TV star. But talk to me more about what it was about Annette.
Well, it's funny. I remember being, I don't know, 7 or 8. And remember, we were living on Cape Cod, didn't have a lot of TV stations. But the one TV station that we got and always got clearly started showing speaking of retro, they went and they were showing the old Mickey Mouse Club. And my mother said, "Oh, I used to watch this when I was a kid." So I thought it was so sweet that I could actually watch shows that my mother had enjoyed. And of course, like most boys in the '50s, I discovered the young Annette and must confess, I fell for her like so many other boys in the '50s. And then the coolest thing was later on, one of those matinee film stations later on also started showing the beach movies, the one that she did with Corman and whatnot. And let me tell you, she worked as a Mouseketeer, but she really worked as a surfer girl, I gotta tell you. So, yes, I sort of you could say I grew up with Annette Funicello.
You bring up those beach movies. That's an interesting thing because Walt gave her some advice. I published a video about this a while back. He told her,
Sure did.
do not wear a bikini. Don't wear a bikini. Don't do it. And for a long while, she tried to adhere to that advice and remained, even though, you know, the part of the appeal of those beach films back in the 60s, the late 50s, early 60s was obviously kids in swimsuits. She tried to remain kind of to adhere to that. But as time went on, the producers of those movies convinced her to put on a two-piece. Pat, she was one of your choices as well. Any fond memories you have of Annette?
Well, it just goes to show that I'm in very good company when it comes to taste.
Yeah.
Mr. Thrash Pondo Pontz.
Yeah.
And his background is rocking. But when it came to the 50s, I was in love with Donna Reed. Now, that's wrong. She's old enough to be my grandmother. But dear God, what a beautiful woman. And, you know, you watch It's a Wonderful Life, and you're like, but she had her own show. And on that show is Shelley Fabares. I rest my case. Not just because, you know, she has the royalty of Hollywood in her, but just such a beautiful lady and talented. And I would defy anybody right after this stream to put on her version of Johnny Angel. And when you do, I almost should take a tally. How many of you guys get that stuck in your head for a week?
Yeah.
Because
Ear candy or an earworm. That song is such an earworm.
Yeah, the voice of an angel. She really did.
Yeah. It's such a great song. I mean, here's a built-in hit for you, Shelley. But she killed it. And as a musician, I can tell you she did. But her career, she kept it alive for decades. Now, that's my respect for her as a person. But oh my God, was she pretty?
You're right. You're right about that. I mean, along with doing that, and in the '70s, she was in a show called She was at the Brian Keith Show with our friend Michael Gray from Shazam. And he remembers her well. Yeah. And then she went on to be in One Day at a Time as Ann's boss that she didn't like on One Day, and her mom was on the show One Day at a Time with her. So you're right, Shelley Fabares. She's
and
beautiful.
Coach.
Yep. Coach, yes, and Coach.
The '80s.
Yeah,
all the way into the
main role.
Did she literally transcend all of our decades here?
Literally
did. Like it.
Wow.
But that's not why I picked her.
Barry, how about you?
Well, like Thrash said, it's going to have to be retroactive because I didn't really start watching television or paying attention to television until 1970, maybe, or 69 or 70, because I was born in 66. But there's one lady on my 50s list that could transcend 3 decades as well. That's because she starred in a Western called Gunsmoke, and it's Amanda Blake as Miss Kitty.
Great choice.
As a kid, even I noticed her because I watched Gunsmoke in the early 70s with my dad and noticed the lady who owned the bar. Oh, she's a fiery redhead. She's very beautiful. But Gunsmoke ran from the late 50s to the early 70s. That's a long time for the longest running Western, I think, on television, if I'm not mistaken. But the area I grew up in did not like to syndicate black and white shows. When I watched television in the 70s, reruns of shows in the 70s and sometimes the early 80s, they would only show the color episodes of Gunsmoke. They would only show the color episodes of Gilligan's Island or the color episodes of I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched. They would not include in that package the black and white episodes. But I did discover them later on as other stations and other networks, Nick at Night, all the others that started up in the 80s, they would run all the shows finally. And I'm like, wow, aren't we lucky that Star Trek's first season wasn't in black and white? We may not have been able to see it in syndication, but it wasn't. So even I never saw the black and white episodes of Lost in Space in syndication either. So Amanda Blake was beautiful. There's one more I want to mention from the 50s because I can only say I'd have a crush on them had I been watching TV in the 50s, and I think that's true. You guys remember Beverly Garland from My Three Sons?
No.
1969 to 72 and My Three Sons. Well, I discovered a television show that she did from 1957 to 1959 called Decoy. And it's a female police officer undercover show that didn't run for very long. And Beverly Garland was beautiful. She's a beautiful lady anyway. But in the late 50s, she was quite the beautiful lady. And watching her perform in that show, going undercover as a gun mole and a hooker, nurses. She went undercover as a singer. It was a starring vehicle for her. And it was a very ahead of its time in the late 50s for a female police officer to have an undercover cop show like that. Yeah. If you've never seen Decoy, go to YouTube. They have some episodes up there. And I would have loved that show because watching it on YouTube, I discovered a whole new side to Beverly Garland I didn't know about. And I would have had a crush on her in the 50s.
So we had Policewoman in the 50s, long before Angie Dickinson's show in the 70s.
Exactly. Wow. It was very ahead of her time.
That's impressive.
She just beat a health problem too. She just beat a major health problem from what I'm learning.
She was a beautiful
Tina Cole, who was also my crush, but I got to just say that. Thank you. Next.
I'll throw in one more to the mix because everyone you mentioned, with the exception of, truthfully, I've never seen Beverly Garland in Decoy, or really, I remember her in My Three Sons, but I don't know if I would classify her as a crush then. But Annette and Shelley and then everyone that's been mentioned so far, Amanda, yeah, for sure. Add one more to the list for me. Let me see if I can find my picture that I had to include. Maybe I didn't upload that one, and we're not going to take the time to upload it right now. But Phyllis Coates, who, if you guys ever watched The Adventures of Superman, you'll recognize her as she was a movie star, but she starred in the first season of The Adventures of Superman, and I absolutely loved her Lois Lane. Her Lois Lane was very different than the Lois Lane that what happened was after season 1, there was a break. They weren't sure whether a season 2 was actually going to happen. And Phyllis went off and made a movie and became contractually obligated to finish that movie when Kellogg's, I believe, finally said, okay, we will sponsor another season of The Adventures of Superman. So they had to recast Lois Lane, and they hired the actress who played Lois Lane in the serials with Kirk Allen, Noah Neal.
Oh, right.
And she was a very different Lois. The Phyllis Coates version of Lois was more hard-boiled, tough as nails kind of Lois Lane. More like we see, you talk about kind of Beverly Garland being a forerunner to, exactly. And breaking ground. That Lois definitely broke ground for the Loises that we would see, in the last couple of decades, where they're more than just someone for Superman to rescue. They're tough as nails, and
And Lois she was a beautiful lady too. Lois
Oh,
was very much so.
yeah, for sure. So we'll add Phyllis to the list, and let's do this now. Let's go out to our group, the crowd that's in the chat, and just ask this question to everybody. Who was your favorite 50s crush? And I'm hoping that we get male and female. We get everybody to contribute. Here, I would hate this to just be guys talking about gals.
I was going to say, I hope you get an answer. Otherwise, I am the oldest person, not only on this stream, but in the chat. Yeah.
So let me go out to the chat here, and let's see if we have folks that are talking about their crushes. So let's see. And let's keep it right now, 50s crushes. Okay, so I see here, let's see, these look like 50s crushes. Marjorie Lord, Anne Francis, and Audrey Meadows.
Of course.
Yeah. And channel member Tracy Roth Myers is contributing. Oh, yeah, this one makes perfect sense. He was on the cover of so many, those kind of teen magazines back in the day. Tony Dow from Leave It to Beaver. Let's see who else we have.
And Anne Francis was beautiful too. Yes,
I agree with that too. Yeah. And Tony was a true hunk too.
Absolutely. Channel member Superplex says Doreen Tracy. Is that someone from the 50s? That's not a name I recognize. Any of you guys recognize that name?
I have a crush on the name.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Cute name.
Doreen Tracy. You know her.
Nostalgic Pod Blast says Marjorie Lord is my number one draft pick. You guys are going to have to tell us what they were in, too. It'll help us out a little bit so we know where these folks are coming from. Maybe it'll ring a bell a little bit for us here. Willie Bowen says Irish McCalla.
Sounds like a whiskey.
John, I just saw the super chat, and I will get to it in just a minute. Thank you so much for that, sir. I didn't earlier because I was not paying attention to the chat. Let's see. Superplex, channel member Superplex says Sherry Jackson. That's a little later, isn't it?
She was 60s.
60s, yeah.
Yeah, she was 60s. She kind of did some stuff in the early 60s. Her stepfather was a man by the name of Matt Pittman, who was a director on The Twilight Zone. Okay. And she was actually in a couple of early Twilight Zones in like 62, 60, around there. But as far as the 50s go, I can't place anything she did in the 50s. She may have. I just can't place anything.
Got it. Okay.
You made my list.
NJ Max Rocks said it agrees with Pat and Bob. Annette Funicello. I think, if you one actress from the 50s, it'd be hard to argue that there was anyone more popular, at least for a period of time, than Annette.
Yeah. Tuesday Weld just came up in the chat. That's a good choice.
Yeah, Tuesday Weld. Was that early 60s or late 50s?
I don't know. Dobie Gillis, folks. We're experts. All four of us. You guys tell us.
Yeah, Dobie Gillis, late 50s.
Was it late 50s?
Late
Okay.
50s.
Okay. And
so, that's a good one.
She was only on for the first few seasons, right? I think, of that show.
Okay. Been so many years.
Yeah.
Still alive too, which is even more amazing.
Yeah.
I talk to these people. She's amazing.
Hoibish, or Hoibsh, says Annette Funicello. That's so lots of folks voting for Annette. Gloop Trekker says Shelley Fabre.
Yeah, thank you, Gloop.
Another vote for Shelley.
I am Gloop.
Nostalgic Podblast says yes. Sherry Jackson was in the 50s, but she did not get. She really didn't get hot until the 60s. I don't like the term hot, but you know what I mean. She really missed. That's when she got the attention, was in the 60s.
She did not blossom until the 60s.
Yeah, blossom is a good way to say that. I like that.
She did not take wing.
There you go. I love it. You guys, you have a penchant for words. Nice. Let's see. Here's one.
I still say hot.
Kenneth Wilkinson says Mrs. Mitchell from Dennis the Menace.
She was hot.
Okay.
was hot.
All right. I'll buy that.
She was hot. Yeah, she
You
was.
guys remember that Rolling Stones song from the 80s? She was hot.
Yeah, there was a
Oh
few.
yeah, I remember that.
Yes.
Great song.
She started me up.
Yeah. I remember that song as well. Is that 80s or late 70s?
That was Tattoo You. That would have been 1980.
Early 80s. Yeah.
Early 80s.
Yeah, December of 80.
Yeah. She was
Make a
hot,
grown man
though.
cry.
I can't remember the name of the actress, a redhead who passed away not long after that from cancer. It was a great video. Great video if you don't remember it. Mrs. Mitchell from Dennis the Menace. Anybody remember who that actress was?
I don't know, but she was hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Here we go. We're going around in circles here. Sandra Sanders gives another vote for Tony Dow. Yeah, for sure.
Saw Tony Dow on an Adam 12 episode the other day. Believe it or not,
Yeah.
really cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
he played a
Desi
Marine who
Arnaz?
gets his car stolen.
From Cindy D.
Yep.
It's a good one. And Russell C. Jabfree says Donna Reed had it going on. She might be considered the 60s. And she even played Miss Ellie for one season in Dallas in the late 70s, or no, 80s, early 80s.
Yeah.
Well, she did From Here to Eternity in the 50s. Now, we were talking TV stars, not film stars.
Right.
But I got to tell you, she was gorgeous in From Here to Eternity.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
She was.
Robin Masters says Tab Hunter.
Yes.
Did Tab have a
I'll buy that.
TV show, or was he mostly movies?
Oh, what the hell was that
He
called?
was on some Western, I
He
thought.
did have a show. Some
I can't
experts.
recall. I can't recall Tab's show though.
All right. We'll take a pause from this. Let me go ahead and take this off the screen for a minute. Let's get to, I know there's another super chat out there. We've got one from John Collins that I need to get to. Let's see what John said. John says there's actually multiple super chats we should get here. And this one, John, I almost feel like we have to wait until we get to the 80s, but you super chatted, so we're super chat goes to the front of the line. That's just the way it is. And I'm not going to disagree with you on any of these. Though Danielle's 90s, I think. But my crushes were Danica McKellar from The Wonder Years, Danielle Fishel from Boy Meets World, and every female cast member of Saved by the Bell. Later on, specific emphasis on Elizabeth, Showgirls Berkeley. For sure. For sure. Thoughts about any of those? Any of those fit into your late 80s, early 90s crushes?
Wow. I didn't go into the
Young for
90s.
me.
I didn't go into the 90s with my list, but I only went up to the 80s. But Berkeley was pretty and cute in Saved by the Bell, but Showgirls, she was hot.
Yeah.
She's
Great
changed.
actress, too, by the
There
way.
we go again.
God, the way she said her lines, man. Oscar.
Showgirls is like a train wreck. It's a guilty pleasure. I can watch. It's just to know that it's directed by the same guy that directed RoboCop and Total Recall. It's what's fascinating
Paul
to me.
Verhoeven. Yeah.
Yeah.
And did he make a good movie after Total Recall? It's like his career went just
I
down.
don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what? There are those that really argue and celebrate, or argue that Showgirls was a good movie and celebrate the, good as in it provides them with enjoyment. Maybe not on a level of quality, but it's an enjoyable film for them.
It was certainly entertaining
Yeah.
to me. It was entertaining.
In an after hours HBO kind of way.
That's right.
Yes.
After dark.
Danielle Fishel, I sat across from her at a restaurant and didn't have the guts to say hello. So there you go. That's
Dave.
I know. Darn it all. Thank you so much for the super chat, John. Tremendous list. And your super chat is appreciated very, very much. Let's see. Let me see what I can rustle up here.
Kurt Russell.
We'll go with, we'll go with the church lady.
Well, isn't that special?
truly is special, John. Thank you so much. Do have another super chat here we need to address. And this is, Larry, you've outdone yourself today. This is for the 50s, a $20 super chat. Larry, I'm gonna stop you now. You're done for the night. Thank you, good sir.
Could I have that problem, please?
He said, this is for Annette, my big, big crush as well. Every little boy in the 50s and early 60s. Good crush, my friend. So that's the exclamation point on our 50s crushes right there. Larry Potter's affirmation that we're on the right track when we all profess our love. And by the way, speaking of Annette, I got to say that one of the things I loved about her was her multiple appearances on Love Boat and Fantasy Island in the late 70s, early 80s. She was at least to me, I remember seeing her frequently on those shows and really enjoyed her work. Even in her later years, I thought she was just a very beautiful lady.
She even did peanut butter commercials for quite some time.
That's right. Usually mothers choose Jeff.
That's right.
Jeff, right.
Yeah,
Not Skippy.
for sure.
That was Jeff.
Wait, it was Skippy, wasn't it? Was it
Skippy? Yes, it was Skippy.
Was
That's right.
Skippy, yeah.
Skippy, yeah, Skippy.
Can we Skippy the GIF and just move on?
Yeah, we're gonna move on, but I'm gonna say thank you to Larry. Here we go.
I have created the ultimate weapon to defeat Austin Powers. Bring in the fembots!
Welcome to my world.
Thank you again, Larry. That's the longest running of my thank you videos, and it felt only appropriate for a super chat of that size.
Can't imagine why.
Sir. All right. So with that said, let's move on to the 60s, kind of a decade where we were, well, I think we were, well, I don't know if we all were born in the 60s. I was. So, okay, I think we were all there. We were born in this decade, and so there may be more for us to pick from in this one. So let me throw this up on the screen, and let me quickly get rid of that. Thanks again, Larry. But so many wonderful, wonderful television shows during the 60s for us to kind of select from. And we're going to go in reverse order this time. So let me go ahead and take this off. And we're going to start with my friend Barry King.
Yes, the 60s. I'd like to go kind of in reverse order right quick because I have 4 of them that I just want to mention that I really do remember well up to number 1. Number 4, you guys remember Petticoat Junction? Who doesn't? And you got 4 young ladies to choose from. 3 they thought, but they were 4 different actresses at one point that played the sisters. But one of them didn't stay on the length of the show, and it was my favorite one out of the show, an actress named Janine Riley. And Janine played Billy Joe Bradley.
Oh, yeah.
One of the girls with the clothes in the water tank at the title sequence of Petticoat Junction. And later on, I started thinking about it. I'm like, they're naked in there. I didn't think about it as a young kid, but now when I look at it, I'm like, they pulled the clothes back over to put them on, and they're in the tank, and they have no clothes on. That's crazy for the 60s. You didn't see anything, but the mind. The mind
is a powerful thing, Barry.
That's right. Janine Riley, a great actress. She went on to be, I don't know if you guys remember a movie in the 70s with Robert Blake called Glide in Blue. It was kind of the flip side of Easy Rider with Fonda, the motorcycle with Fonda and Dennis Hopper. This was the flip side of motorcycle cops in the 70s, putting up with repression and people treating them badly and stuff. And Robert Blake starred, it was a star. And Janine Riley from Petticoat Junction played Jolene, a lady who worked at a bar, and it was a much different role than Petticoat Junction. And there was no nudity or anything like that, but she played a much more fleshed out, dramatic character in it, and it was even nicer looking in it, the way she would dress. So she was one of my crushes in the 60s. Next, I have to go to Julie Newmar, Catwoman herself from Batman. If she's not on your list, I don't know what to say, because she's transcended quite a bit. We had 4 different Catwomen on the 60s. One in the movie, Millie Merriweather, and you got to count all of them together. All the Catwomen that were in the 60s. But the first one I saw was Eartha Kitt. And as far as the Catwoman goes, she's my favorite Catwoman from the old Batman series is Eartha Kitt. But as far as looks and being beautiful Julia Newmar went on to be in a guest stint in Buck Rogers and a lot of other shows. Julie was a truly incredible lady and beautiful. Next up was Gilligan's Island. You had 3 if you count Mrs. Howell, but everybody says that. Ginger or Mary Ann? I'm like, well, as an adult, I say Mrs. Howell because you get $1 million with Mrs. Howell, so who cares? So, but anyway, I would always go with Ginger. For me, it was Tina Louise. I thought that I know she was channeling Marilyn Monroe as Ginger, but she was indeed a beautiful woman in everything she did. She was in a movie called God's Little Acre and went on to be in Dallas. I think she was killed in Dallas, thrown off a roof or a building or something in Dallas back in the 80s or the late 70s. But I choose Tina Louise as number 2. But my number 1 crush of the 60s, I don't know how many of your lists she's on, but I have to pick Jeannie herself, Barbara Eden. That woman today is still beautiful. Yeah. She's got a beautiful personality. Everything about her. It reminds me of Olivia Newton-John. Everything about her is beautiful. Her personality when she's in an interview, the way she talks, the way she carries herself. Barbara Eden, she did legs commercials in the 70s and the 80s, or the pantyhose commercials. I remember those well too. So she is my number 1 crush in the 60s, Barbara Eden.
Yeah, just turned 92 the other day.
Yeah.
Same age as William Shatner now. Isn't that something?
Yeah. Wow. Wow. All right. Barry kind of, he took a lot of our choices there.
I had to go through them quick. Sorry.
But Pat, did he leave any room for you to at least share one of your crushes with us?
One? Well, that's the funny thing. We're talking about the 60s.
Yeah.
That's where the crushes lived. And we would need a 3-hour show to really do honor to all the women that should have been. And then that should have been, chosen. Barry, of course, just took them all, and I have nothing. I'm wrong there. And that's, Tina Louise, you were Ginger over Mary Ann?
Yeah.
This guy used to call my friend. Anyway,
I like Mary Ann too.
Oh, see, thank you. I win. But no, for me, the 60s, Barbara Feldon. That's it. Enough said. Agent 99. And when she would say, "Oh, Max," I'd be like over in the corner. What just happened to me? Oh my God, I love that lady. And then, of course, for me, number 2, Barry, Diana Rigg. Beat that one.
Oh, yeah.
Who could? Oh my God, what a woman. What an actress. That show just, of course, showcased her beauty constantly, right from the get-go. First scene, Diana Rigg, the hottest woman you've ever seen in your life, is in this show called The Avengers. And she was it for me. Like I said, in that decade, I'd literally done videos on TV crushes, and there were many. So I just wanted to point out those 2 were the cat's meow for me. Absolutely.
Diana Rigg showed up on Game of Thrones, and it was incredible to see her there. She was fantastic on that show.
Amazing.
Not too long ago.
Problem was I didn't recognize her.
Well, yeah, she was still fantastic, though. Yeah, you're right.
Well, pass it on to Thrash.
Yeah, your turn.
Well, one thing before I give mine, I have to give kudos to both Pat and Barry because Barry, I'm with you on Gilligan's Island. Everyone said, "Well, Marianne's more girl next door. If I wanted to go next door, I'd go next door." No, Ginger was tall. I've always had a thing for women that were taller than me. Redhead, always had a thing for redheads. She had it going on. So yeah, definitely Team Ginger. I know I'm in the minority, but I will stay there and be proud of it. I know, I know. It's an uphill battle, but I've picked this hill to die on. And as far as Barry goes, I gotta throw this out about Diana Rigg. I too had something of a crush on her when I was much younger, and the cutest thing is my mother actually fessed up. Apparently, my father also had a crush on Diana Rigg when they watched the Avengers in prime time. So Diana Rigg actually became a generational crush in my house. So you gotta give it to her. If she can actually transcend generations. But the one I'm going to go with, because it wasn't mentioned here, but casually mentioned earlier, I'm going to go with Sherry Jackson because she was, by all definitions, a sci-fi sex kitten. She did Twilight Zone. She did Lost in Space. And I still can't get that outfit she wore and what little girls are made of out of my mind.
Now I've got a face to go with the name. Now I know what we're talking about.
Yes.
Thrash, she was also in a Gomer Pyle episode where she wanted to marry Gomer, and she's 1964. Beautiful in that too, and I agree with you. She's a beautiful lady.
She's out hitting the circuits too.
Yeah,
she's signing autographs.
But she was just amazing, and I remember seeing what little girls are made of from when I was in middle school, just going, dung. And
you were excited, but you didn't know why.
Ted Cassidy is so hot.
Yeah, I know. It's that voice. I'm like butter.
All right. Well, those are all great choices. Well, you all know one of mine, which there's something about the girl next door for me. And boy, no one was cuter in the 60s in pigtails than Dawn Wells. And I still think it's just an absolute tragedy how we lost her. She was in relatively good health, and then COVID took her, which just breaks my heart. My other crush would be, you'll notice there's a trend, superhero shows, where my crushes are. But I feel like we have to mention Yvonne Craig, not only for her work, tremendous work during the third season of Batman, but also for an appearance in Star Trek that was pretty notable as well.
Pretty good in the Green Orion makeup.
Oh, yeah.
It was. I was green with envy.
All right. Let's go out to the community and see what they have to say when it comes into the 60s crushes that were their favorites. And again, I'm hoping that everybody will participate. And I do see a super chat from where Nomad has gone before. Actually, let's start there. Like I said, I was tempted to push that and just wait for a minute, but you know what? Super chats come first. They should. They definitely should. Again, I think we're 70s and 60s here. 70s and 60s, where Nomad has gone before, says, my first official crush, and one of mine as well. And every time Pat does an interview with her, I just think, what an incredibly beautiful woman inside and out. But my first official crush would have to be Kathy Coleman from Land of the Lost.
Yes.
Later would have to be Barbara Eden, although now if I see that question on Facebook, I'll answer the robot B9 on Lost in Space. That's a good one where Nomad has gone before, and both of those choices are excellent. Of course, you had others that, and who doesn't agree that Barbara Eden is just an incredibly beautiful person and wonderful. And Kathy Coleman will probably get to and talk about in just a little bit some more, but those are both great choices. I got to rustle up something for where Nomad has gone before, a way to say thank you. Let me see. How about, this is good. We were talking about Batman a minute ago, Batgirl, but Batman, this one's a fun one. your support, good sir. Really appreciate it. Let's go and see what everyone else is saying. So let me go live to the chat here and let's see what we've got for the 60s. Tracy Rock. Well, let me start here. I'm gonna miss some of them, folks, but let's just start here. Kenneth Wilkinson, Judy Robinson. Okay, yeah, for sure.
Marta Kristen.
Yeah,
She also did the Beach movie.
Yes, she did. Her first screen appearance. That's right, Thrash Man.
Channel member
Lorelai.
Lisa Fields votes for one of the Livingston boys, Stanley.
I
Let's
presume.
see.
I wanted to mention Tom McCluskey said
Yeah.
that Tina Cole was one of his crushes.
Well, if you watch your interview, Pat, I believe Tina says that, and by the way, everybody, if you aren't watching Pat's interviews over on his channel, Golden Rage of TV, you better be. He has an interview that he dropped just a couple days ago on all the podcast clients, and then today on YouTube with Tina Cole. And she talks about, if I remember correctly from that interview, she said that she got the most mail out of everybody on that show.
Yes. Out of all the Don Feddersen productions.
Yeah.
Which spanned that and Family Affair and then a few other shows. But yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah. Angie Max Rocks or NJ Max Rocks says my 60s crushes were Don Wells and Laurie Saunders, aka Bobby Joe. Another vote for Tina Louise from Gary Carpenter. Let's see.
Hooray.
I'm trying to find the crushes, Emily. I'm trying to find all of your crushes, but the problem is there's a lot here, and so I'm going to miss them.
There was no bad choice from Petticoat Junction, if you think about it. I mean, Edgar Buchanan even. I mean, come on. I mean, somebody like Edgar, too. So, yeah.
Leave Ellie Mae aside. I mean, like, whoever thought of her as a crush?
Let's see who else we can talk about here. So, yeah, when we're talking, we're going to probably be talking about our own personal picks, but we do want to go out in the chat and make sure we mention other people's choices as well. Willie
They're
Bowen,
saying Kathy Garber, Dave. Kathy Garber.
Where I haven't seen it yet. I'll get to it. Lee Merriweather from the Time Tunnel.
That makes sense.
Tracy Rothmeyer says that Ted Cassidy was a very nice-looking man outside of his makeup.
He was.
Nostalgic Pod Blasts mentions Sally Kellerman. Paul Rotter mentions Melissa Sue Anderson. We've got to jump a decade for that one, though.
That's 70s.
Wajimeen says Barbara Eden. Tom McCluskey mentions Don Wells being one of his greatest experiences when talking to a celebrity. Music Girl 67, Ms. Elizabeth says Michael Landon from Bonanza. I should say channel member Music Girl 67.
Oh, yeah.
Channel member Lance Chaffin jumps a decade to the 70s and mentions Lana from Three's Company. Let's see. Channel member Zuperplex says my first crush was Melody Patterson, Wrangler Jane. That's 60s or 50s?
That's F Troop.
F Troop, so it's 60s.
60s, yeah.
Going into the 70s again, Cindy D mentions Lauren Tweez, and yeah, she was in an early episode of the Charlie's Angels, and then was she not later on again, but this time as Julie on the Love Boat crossover? I think she was. Nostalgic Pod Blast. Just complimenting Nomad on his handle. Let's see, Gary.
It is a great handle. That's a double Star Trek reference.
Yes, that's right.
And then Nomad was the lost space seat situation.
Right.
Paralyze.
Exactly.
Right.
Great handle, Nomad.
Gary Carpenter says Elizabeth Montgomery. Donna Douglas, Ellie Mae. Channel member Braidwood Inn says all the women Jack dated in Three's Company. We'll get to them. At least one of them I'm going to mention in when we jump to the 70s. Let's see. Nostalgic Podblast compliments you, Barry, on hitting a grand slam when you mentioned Julie. Now, let's be clear. I think all of us would have mentioned Julie if Barry hadn't mentioned her, because she is an icon of the decade as well. Let's see. Cindy D mentions Adam West. Yeah, for sure. Adam West was a hunk during the 60s. And I believe was it after Batman that he was offered James Bond? I can't remember. but was at one time in
Yes.
consideration to play Bond.
It was either after or during.
Yeah.
I think it was
Yeah.
after. I do. Because it was in Her Majesty's Secret Service, wasn't it? And that would have been
It would have been the one with Lazenby, right? With
68,
Diana Rigg.
69.
68,
Yeah.
69.
Yeah.
So it would have been after Batman. By my calculations.
Danny Staten says that our arguing over Marianne and Ginger is ridiculous. Either way,
Yes.
it's fine. Yep. And Rosemary mentions that Tina Louise is the last one standing. Superplex mentions Linda Evans, who was in the 60s on TV,
Yes.
but I think of her more as a 70s actress, just strangely enough, because of Dynasty.
Right.
That's actually 80s.
Oh, yeah, that's 80s. Yep, you're right.
Right.
Let's see. Channel member Lisa Fields mentions Michael Landon. Yeah, great. And let's see. Gary Carpenter mentions Kathy Garver from Family Affair.
I know.
A friend of Pat's, an FOP.
I will let her know.
Yeah.
She
Alex
actually
Estrada
did that.
mentions Shirley Fabaret. I have the hardest time saying that. I always want to pronounce the S too. I just can't. It's like the submariner for me, Barry.
But you got it though, Dave.
I want to
Fabergé.
pronounce it Fabergé.
Yeah, Fabergé. That's the way. I like it. Let's see. Cindy D also liked Barry Livingston. Oh, the other one was Stanley. So Cindy mentioning the brother. Zorro 710 says no love for Eva Gabor. Come on. She wasn't top of the list.
She was great. Yeah, she was. She was the best looking Gabor sister, obviously. She really was.
For sure. And Music Girl 67 is surprised that none of us have mentioned Gidget, Sally Field. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised we didn't either.
Yeah.
A lot of these are no-brainers. That's the thing. It's like there's so many.
I never watched Gidget, but I knew her more from The Flying Nun than Gidget, so I was familiar with her, and she's been working a long time too. Sally,
or the Burt Reynolds movies. I remember her most from the Burt Reynolds movies.
Yeah,
which I loved.
So Thrash just said Burt Reynolds is one of his crushes. I think.
I must confess.
You know what? With Burt, it was a sense of humor. There was something about it. Easily, anyone wants to profess Burt as a crush, I'm not going to argue with you. That's A-okay by me. Channel member Emily Miller mentions Pernell Roberts, Bill Bixby, Robert Conrad. Bill was definitely 60s, and Pernell for sure as well. Conrad, yeah, those were all 60s for sure. I'm thinking of their shows in the 70s, but they were definitely heartthrobs in the 60s.
They used to have to sew him into those pants on the Wild Wild West. If he had to go to the bathroom in between takes,
for sure.
And bust Lou Ferrigno out of them in the Incredible Hulk.
But did you guys know that they made the saddle the same color as his underwear, so that in case the pants split, his underwear blended in with the saddle?
I did not know that.
Great.
We know stuff.
I didn't know it.
We don't just.
Larry Moore says he's surprised we didn't mention Catherine Bach, only because we haven't gotten to the 70s yet, I'm sure. Here's one. Gary Carpenter mentions Donna Douglas and Joy Lansing. Do you remember Joy Lansing?
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful lady. By the way, from the state of Utah, originally born in the state of Utah. I remember her from guest appearances all the way into the 50s, I think, in like The Adventures of Superman. She's in an episode of that. But yeah, great actress.
Beautiful lady.
All right, we better stop here, or we will again spend all night just talking about one decade.
In the 60s.
Yeah, in the 60s. But let's go ahead and let's move on up to the 70s. And
wow,
so many wonderful TV shows again, and actors and actresses that we can talk about there. And let's start with Pat. We'll go Pat, Bob, and then BK. We'll save Barry for last. I'm sure his list is large again. So Pat, Bob, and then BK. Go for it,
the
Pat.
largest list I have.
Well, to make room for all of Barry's choices, besides Stacy, because we know she's number one.
That's right.
And the irony is that my wife and Stacy do resemble each other, just like Barry and I do. I think that's the era, again, where Charlie's Angels ruled the airwaves. And I was watching TV. Farrah did not do it for me. She was overblown, not overblown, but publicized, I think is the word, which put Jaclyn Smith in the perfect place to come in under the radar. But every move I make, from taking that dang helmet off when she was riding the motor, oh my gosh, that hair, that beauty, and she's still kicking. And yeah, Jaclyn was my favorite from that era, for sure. For sure. Besides Victoria Principal. Now, I'm going to do a BK. Okay, then there was Victoria Principal. Yeah. I don't know why I liked her. A couple of reasons. And then there was Heather Thomas. Who?
That was 80s.
Are you jumping the gun?
You're jumping the gun.
Are we in the 70s? Wait a minute. Okay,
stop. I know you want to be like Barry, but just stop.
Wait, I didn't jump decades. I didn't jump that.
Decades. Forgive me, folks. Juliet Mills, please. If it's not Marlo Thomas, who of course was, but that's my first real crush right there. From The Nanny and the Professor, or excuse me, Nanny and the Professor, and with the British accent and the fact that she just could take over the scene. I just thought she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. I had not seen Haley Mills yet, her sister, but Juliet. Oh, Juliet. Wherefore art thou, Juliet? I just love that lady. My gosh, what a
There
beauty.
she is. She's back.
That's her. That was my first real crush. I mean, I was attracted and understood what it was to see beautiful people. But when I saw her, I'm like, I need a nanny, mommy. That one.
That's creepy.
Yes.
No.
And, well, that's Pat. And then, of course, there's Mom.
That's right.
I mean, look at that. That's porcelain beauty right there, folks.
She was beautiful. She was.
She really was. A great actress. Oh, my God. She carried that show, too. I mean, came in and just, this is my show, and I'm going to be told what to do. And then she turned the whole thing around and said, no, I'm going to make it an independent, self-sufficient woman prior to Mary Tyler Moore. So she did influence that. And she influenced me, too, to just fall in love.
Love it. Love it.
Sorry, I skipped a decade there.
That's okay. It's probably good you got
back
him in
to it.
because we may not make it to the 80s tonight. I have a hard stop at 10 p.m. Eastern time, which means we have 28 minutes to handle the rest of our activities for the evening. So what we're going to do, we're going to finish our 70s. We're going to do a drawing. We'll watch the vintage commercials. We'll do the drawing right after that so I have time to set it up. And then we will maybe like rapid fire handle our 80s. But it's good you got yours in, Pat, just in case we don't even get there, because we'll go back out to the community because I want to have them share their 70s crushes as well. So, Bob, you're up.
Well, I got to say, my first real crush, by the way, was, of course, also fellow Massachusettsite Bay Stater Kathy Coleman from The Land of the Lost. I was 8 or 9 at the time. She would have been, I guess, like 14, a much older woman. I always had a thing for older women. She emulated strength and charm, yet vulnerability, and I just thought she was absolutely amazing in Land of the Lost. So, apart from the possible exception of Miss Cartwright from Lost in Space, Kathy Coleman was my first real crush. That being said, Pat, I got to disagree with you. Very rarely I do this, but I was Team Farrah Fawcett. My best friend was Jaclyn Smith, and we used to argue about this routinely. But I was Team Farrah Fawcett. And I got to give this one as a shout-out because someone else mentioned it, and it would be a shame not to at least tip the old hat to Catherine Bach. The woman actually has her own fashion statement. The woman introduced a garment into our society, which is still here to this day. That's saying something. So I'm going to have to give it to those 3 young ladies as a triumvirate of 70s crushes, and I will leave you with that. I thank you.
And Farrah had her own hairdo, the Farrah flip.
And
She
her
had her own
doll.
shampoo.
And shampoo,
She
yeah.
had her own doll.
She owned her own Barbie-esque doll.
Yeah. the Farrah phenomenon was a real thing. You mentioned Jacqueline for the 70s, but or for the 80s, but of course she was very much a 70s crush as well for a lot of us. Barry, you're up.
Well, I like Thrash. I've got it's not a three-way tie, but I'll second and third and fourth what he said about Farrah. With all due respect to my esteemed colleague Pat McCormack, I loved Jacqueline Smith. She was fantastic. She was a great actress. She was actually the best angel on the show. She was the one that did the most and one of the better actresses in the show. But Farrah Fawcett transcended all of that. A lot of people don't realize she was only on one season of the show, but then went on to just go into superstardom about doing all these other things and everything else, and just went up to the stratosphere with her stardom, and then proved in the 80s that she could act and a dramatic act, which was fantastic. So the phenomena of Farrah, it is still, I went for years, it was hard for me not to say Farrah Fawcett Majors, because that was the name that she was known as for so many years. And I still consider her and Lee Majors, they didn't make it, they didn't last, but they were our royal couple from the 70s. They really were our generation. They were our royal couple, and that's who I considered them. I also want to throw out there Lindsay Wagner from The Bionic Woman. Lindsay was incredible. I mean, she had a big task to do. She had to be like Steve Austin on another network, and did it, and sometimes did it better. So Lindsay was amazing. She still is an amazing lady today. I've met her a couple of times and talked to her. She's a very nice lady as well. And one more from Buck Rogers. I have to go with Pamela Hensley, Princess Ardala from Buck Rogers. As a kid, I felt a certain way about her, but I don't know why. I know now why, but I didn't know then why I felt what I was feeling. So there's three good ones from the 70s. That was the longest list that I had to whittle down and try to work with, because that's when all the crushes kicked into high gear for me, was the 70s.
Yeah, I think just one look at this photo tells you exactly why she was a crush for a lot of us. And
she wrote a cookbook. She's got a cookbook out now. She's an author and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, she pretty much mid 80s decided to be done acting, and published a cookbook, and then just kind of faded away into everyday normal, just being a regular human being. And hopefully she has had a marvelous time at that. I suspect she's just as good at everyday normal life as she was on screen. So
I agree.
She's
100%.
one of my crushes as well. Surprised no one mentioned Linda Carter.
Who?
Linda's out there for sure. Yeah.
Linda Carter. Let me think.
But I had to shorten the list.
What I'd mention real quick would be Farrah's.
Who? This is why it should be a 3-hour show, Dave.
No.
Farrah's replacement.
Farrah's replacement. We'll just call her that. I do have to correct you on the Farrah only did appear as a regular cast member on Charlie's Angels.
Right. That's what I meant. Yeah. Correct.
But remember, she was contractually obligated to show up, even if she did seem miserable during a handful of those final episodes. I think all the way through the 3rd season, right?
Yeah, kind of like Suzanne Summers in Three's Company. She had that kind of weird contract too. Yeah.
Well,
when she was on the phone.
Yeah, the phone calls.
Right.
The phone calls.
That was so tragic.
Oh yeah. Speaking of, I'll throw one more out there for you guys.
Joyce.
Joyce.
What a cutie. You know, anyone that of course, Don Wells for me in the 60s. Well, Joyce DeWitt for me in the 70s.
Joyce always reminded me of Suzanne Plachette.
What was that?
I thought Joyce DeWitt and Suzanne Plachette had that similar look about them.
Yes,
they
do.
Very
they
good
do.
look about them, yeah.
And Pat, you were trying to say something?
Well, Barry just always talks over me. I don't know why. I mean, it's not like we're on the radio together, but yes, Plachette. I'm hoping to have her as a guest on radio.
Oh, that'd be great to have Suzanne on. It's Suzanne. I thought Suzanne was dead.
What did I just say?
Joyce DeWitt.
Joyce, thank you.
Suzanne's gone.
Plachette, but of course,
if you manage to pull that interview, Barry, you're going to get 100 million views. I guarantee it.
Back from the dead to join Pat.
That'll be 99 million more than I have right now.
If you get an interview with Joyce DeWitt, how fantastic would that be? Because she's kind of faded into that kind of, I know she does like dinner theaters and does some live acting and does that kind of stuff. But for the most part, she has just kind of gone on and lived her life as well. And how wonderful it would be for you to be able to interview her. I'd love to kind of catch up with her and be able to hear what she's doing these days, in terms of other things besides just the craft of acting.
Another honorable mention you guys might remember too is from Secrets of ISIS, Joanna Cameron.
Yeah.
What an
Another
incredible
great
looking
one.
woman she was. She's very great actress too. Very nice as well.
All right. Let's go to the comments real quick and let me make sure we're okay super chat wise. So let me go to the comments and let's see. I'm going to mention, Emily says we're not talking about any of the guy crushes. I'm going to mention a guy crush, not necessarily a crush that I had, but you know what? I've certainly grown to appreciate him. Friend of Barry King, recent interviewee on the Pat McCormack Retro Radio podcast, one TV's Michael Gray. Every time I listen to this feller, I just love what he has to say. He's so humble. Yeah. And yet this is a guy who through the 70s was just a teen idol. And then he showed up, speaking of Joanna Cameron, showed up on one of my favorite superhero TV shows of the 70s, the Shazam show, which was just, he was so good in that. And I love where he was talking, I think in your interview, Pat, where his manager approached him about Shazam and said, I don't know if you really want to do this. And Michael's like, it's work. Why wouldn't I? And it turned out to be, even though his manager was hesitant to bring Shazam to him, the role of Billy Batson to him, because it was Saturday morning TV, it turned out to be kind of the thing that he relishes most about his career. And he's had a lot of amazing things, but he just loves being part of the Shazam legacy. Another fantastic interview, Pat, and just love listening to. I know you've visited with him as well, BK. Just love listening to that guy.
Well, going back and listening to this show, depending on what date it is, he just had a birthday.
Yeah,
this past couple of days.
That's right. I wished him happy birthday on Twitter. Yeah. Happy birthday, Michael.
And if we're going to do 70s guy crushes, or that is to say, guys who were crush material, you have two of the biggies of all time. Of course, you have Sean Cassidy, which all the girls in my school were in love with at the time. And of course, tip of the hat to the LDS, we had, of course, Donny Osmond. My wife is still in love with Donny Osmond.
And Marie.
Honest with you, she still thinks he's amazing.
And Marie.
Well, yeah, but she's not a guy crush. She's a girl crush. And I I had a crush on her myself, actually. And if we had more time, I would have mentioned that. But I wanted to shout out Donny Osmond.
Yeah. Shout out to the Osmonds. I obviously, being from Utah and of the same faith as the Osmonds, it was something I always rooted for them. And relished in their success. And of course, had a crush on Marie as well. So, how couldn't you? And when Donnie made his big comeback in the 80s, when he made that big comeback with Soldier of Love, no one was more excited than I was for him.
And a whole new generation discovered him. It was incredible. Yeah.
And I loved him in Dreamcoat. He was actually amazing.
So good as Joseph. Yep.
Okay.
So good as Joseph.
Okay, you turkeys. I got to give the Donny Osmond story because you're all talking about him. It was the 49ers, Joe Montana era. Ladies and gentlemen, to sing the national anthem, Mr. Donny Osmond, 80,000. As he's walking out, he is being it's tens of thousands of people booing him, and he just gets the mic and goes, "Oh, say can," does the whole thing. By the time he was done with that piece, everybody were on their feet, cheering with all their voices because he went out there unlike anything. I was probably 12 when I saw this. It was the best rendition of the Star Spangled Banner that I'd ever seen.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Better than yours?
But he shut tens of thousands of people up, turned them completely around, and when he walked off, I'll never forget that.
Amazing story. That's a great story.
It's great.
Love it. I hope Donnie gets to hear that story one of these days. That's just fantastic. And definitely, I think a lot of those guys, not just Donny Osmond, but a lot of those folks that were teen idols in the early 70s really had kind of an uphill battle to kind of prove themselves and try to really kind of show that they were creative artists that were incredibly talented. And certainly Donny Osmond
He
and the
was.
entire Osmond clan fall into that.
For sure.
Go ahead.
For sure. Yes, I was agreeing.
Let's go ahead and get to some comments real quick here. Let's see what we've got here. Well, there we go. Nostalgic Pod Blast says Marie Osmond. Yeah, for sure. Sandra Sanders, definitely 70s, although just the tail end of the 70s when he kind of made his debut. Well, he was on Little House, I think, before he was on Buck Rogers. So, yeah, Gil Gerard. On Mike Malloy, someone we should have mentioned, along with Pamela Hensley, Aaron Gray for sure. Dark Titan says Nancy Francione, Marky Post, good choices. Rosalia, this is why I love having you in the chat, Rosalia. Tweaky the Robot, of course. Yeah. Let's see what else we've got here. Dark Titan says Lindsay Wagner, definitely. Let's see. R1 Cam says the Mighty 70s, when I grew up, Susan Day, Joanna Cameron, Lindsay Wagner, Linda Carter, Joyce DeWitt, and the entire cast of Charlie's Angels. Yeah, for sure. Cheryl Ladd, Gopher from Love Boat. There you go. Fred Grandy, love it, love it, love it. Let's see. Gary Carpenter has met Catherine Bach. That's nice. Lots of votes for Linda Carter here. I see Nostalgic Pod last mentioning Linda Carter. Let's see who else we've got to go the other direction here. Princess Ardala, so Pamela Hensley. Yes. Love that. Okay, Willie Bowen says Deborah Klinger, super chick from Captain Cool and the Kongs. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And how about Jan Smithers, folks? She's kind of 70s and 80s. But
yes.
Yeah, Superplex, channel member Superplex mentions Jan Smithers. Charlie Small mentions Catherine Bach. Hoybish mentions Deborah Winger. She was, of course, Wonder Girl on Wonder Woman there before her career skyrocketed in the movies. Willie Bowen mentions another good one, Adrienne Barbeau. Yes.
Maud.
Yeah. DOA version 2.1 says Joyce DeWitt, Victoria Principal, Victoria Hamill. Is that right? Victoria Hamill? It's Veronica Hamill, right? Veronica, yeah. Victoria Jackson.
Right.
And Mrs. Cunningham, of course. Yes. Marion Ross and Susan Day. Another vote for Susan Day. Hey, Tracy Roth Myers mentions John Belushi. What a funny man. Sometimes humor is the most attractive of all things. Channel member Sean Innes says Cheryl Ladd. Nostalgic Pod Blast mentions that Cheryl Ladd sang the national anthem of the Super Bowl in 1980. Hoybish mentions Lorraine Newman. Here's another one. Music Girl 67, of course, mentions Donny Osmond. We've waxed nostalgic about Donnie quite a bit, but here's another one that hasn't been mentioned who is very popular. I know a lot of folks definitely had him on their crush list. Randolph Mantooth from Emergency.
You can get an autograph picture
ever. That's just such a cool name.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Nice guy.
Could I say something about Marie Osmond right quick? If she's someone's crush today, it's totally fine because I don't know what she's doing right, but she is still very incredibly pretty to this day.
Yeah.
I don't know what she's doing.
For sure. She sure is. I saw a clip of her at a football game over the weekend. And yeah, she definitely does not look her age. And
same with Valerie Bertinelli.
Yes.
She still looks great.
For sure.
Too. So, yeah.
Where did I see? I saw a clip of her at Wolfgang's concert, his recent Mammoth, when he was with Mammoth. Let's see. Eric Estrada was mentioned by Sandra Sanders. Another good one for sure. Kind of and here's a great one. Robert Hedges, the star of Airplane, but also the star of Angie from the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
Super fan. Lisa Fields mentions that one. Let's see what else we got here. Cheryl Tiegs. I don't recall her being on any TV shows, but boy, was she an icon of the 70s.
Commercials.
That counts. Television.
There you go. Minolta commercials. I think she was on camera commercials. I remember that. And Greg Effigan was mentioned by Rosemary Magrino.
Oh, yeah. Greg's great.
And Robert Hedges, did that person mean Robert Hayes? I think the Nostalgic Podcast is it was Robert Hayes and Angie in Airplane.
No, she meant Robert Hedges from Welcome Back, Kotter.
Welcome Back, Kotter. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Just making sure. Thanks, Chant.
Went Robert Hayes, which, yeah. There you go. 2 for 1.
We're on a first name basis with him. We'll call him
Yeah.
Bob.
Nicely done. Nicely done. Way to catch that one, BK. All right, we've got to stop again here. As much as I'd like to keep going, because I do have a hard stop in 10 minutes, I'm embarrassed to say. But that means we've got to get to some important things. I'm going to run the commercials and get the giveaway set up, and then we'll give things away, and then we'll talk just a few more minutes with our guests tonight. Maybe sneak in our 80s just as we leave here. And boy, it's been. Why didn't I schedule at least 2 hours for this? I'm freaking not thinking this thing was going to go for just an hour and a half.
Why don't we do a part 2? Then we can have a 3-hour show.
Yes. Right. Then we can go into the 90s and then address some of those folks that were mentioned.
Do our man
some of them
crush,
too.
Our man crush show too. We need to do
Yeah, we may have to. We very well may have to. So we'll table the 80s and the 90s for a part 2. Great suggestion, Bob. Okay, so let's do the commercials. We'll be right back with the drawing. Let me find those commercials and fire them up. Us old men, we need our breaks.
A ticking bomb means trouble for Batman and Robin.
Holy, breaking and entering. It's Batgirl.
Quick, Batgirl. Untie us before it's too late.
It's already too late. I've worked for you a long time, and I'm paid less than Robin. Same job, same employer means equal pay for men and women.
No time for jokes, Batgirl.
It's no joke. It's the federal equal pay law.
Holy act of Congress.
If you're not getting equal pay, contact the Wage and Hour Division, U.S. Department of Labor.
Hey guys, have you tasted new Ultra Bright toothpaste?
New Ultra Bright?
New improved Ultra Bright.
What's new?
A whole new taste.
What's improved?
The whitening formula. After one tube, look in the mirror. If you had yellowing stains, you should see whiter looking teeth.
It only takes one taste, one tube of new Ultra Bright. Now whiter looking teeth are just one tube away.
Try new Ultra Bright.
Unbelievable. Do you believe this? It says TV star reveals terrible secret. And there's a picture of me. When I get a break, I fix myself a cup of Maxwell House instant. You know, something nice, warm, so I can kick back, relax, put my feet up. Must be working, because I'm not even upset to find out I'm the daughter of alien visitors.
All right. Hashtag crush, people. That's what we need in the chat right now. Going to give away a copy of Retro Fan Magazine. Folks, if you don't know what Retro Fan Magazine is, if you haven't heard me talk about how awesome Retro Fan Magazine is, well, my sincere apologies. This is a magazine that if you enjoy this kind of conversation, what we're doing tonight, it just revels in all sorts of pop culture from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. The journalists that are involved, the publishers of Retro Fan Magazine, and all of the contributing journalists, they are people that truly love this stuff. It comes through in every word on the page. I've got a link in the description section of this live stream for Retro Fan Magazine. If you don't win, why don't you click on that link and take a look, maybe subscribe. A digital only is definitely the value play, but there is something magical about getting your hands on an actual magazine, an edition of Retro Fan Magazine, which is certainly the way I enjoy reading it the very, very most. But let's give folks another 30 seconds. Let me put my timer on the screen. 30 seconds to get hashtag crush into the live stream, into the chat. And while we're doing that, I think I saw an interesting comment. It's from our friend, channel member Emily Miller. Let's see. Who said, boy, I can't find it now. But what her comment was that we need to get some ladies on this for part 2. So I will do my very best to reach out and see if I can't add a female voice to part 2. But if I struggle, Emily, I may be reaching out to you. So be careful what you wish for, my friend. But I will go to Retro Nerd Girl first and see if she would like to join us for a part 2, because I think you're right. I think it would be great to have a female voice in this conversation along with us. It's kind of breaking the sanctity of the RetroPALooza 4, but I think in this case, it certainly would be worthwhile to throw the invite her way. All right, we've got 31 entries into the chat, so let's go ahead and click the button and see who our winner is tonight. Wish it played some music while it did this. Wow, where Nomad has gone before. Nicely done.
Read long and prosper.
Yes, read long and prosper. Here's the deal where Nomad has gone before. I'm going to put this on the screen real quick.
You are the creator.
Error. Error. Error.
You are the creator.
Error.
I need you, my friend, to send me your details. So what I need is your name and your physical address, and we will get a copy of Retro Fan Magazine sent out to you. Thanks so much for being part of the live stream this evening. And, I'm happy tickled to see that one of the Super Chat folks won the drawing. That's tremendous. Thanks for being such a supporting member of the community. All right. So, yes, we've got 4 minutes. So let's do this. Let me take this off the screen.
Do I have a physical address? I can't even remember what mine is.
These days.
Remember,
BK on the air.
It's not physical.
Oh, okay.
It's in my mortgage
that we get here at RetroPALooza. Yes, congratulations. Yes, and John Collins mentions Tracy Roth Myers. That's who we should invite. She has her own YouTube channel. Tracy, I'll reach out to you and give you the invite as well. Maybe we'll have a couple voices on. So we'll schedule that in the not too distant future. All right. So I'd love to have you guys just kind of talk about your channels for a minute. And if you want to sneak in an 80s crush, feel free to do so, just as a preview for next time. We'll start where we begin, with my friend Thresh Pontz. Tell us a little bit about what you do here on YouTube, my friend.
Well, as Rod Serling was saying in the beginning of my intro, it's a nostalgia channel. I love talking about mostly TV and books, literature, sci-fi, horror, a specialty, vintage all the way. In fact, today I just put a retrospective on the John Wyndham classic Day of the Triffids. Was that the most influential apocalyptic film ever made? You tell me. But I also get a lot of mileage. I like to do a lot of humor. And I have a symposium, an ongoing saga on the worst dad jokes of all time. And there are many installments of that. So if you like corny dad jokes and vintage sci-fi horror, come and join me on my channel. Oh, and Heather Thomas all the way.
Barry, you're up.
Wow. Well, it's been fun, guys. I appreciate you having me as always. I'm the only one out of all of these guys that has the insane craziness to be on a live radio show every Saturday, and I do it. It's BK on the air. I'm on Saturdays from 10 a.m. till noon on AM 750 and 100.3 FM WBHF. That's WBHFradio.org. If you want to stream us on the on your computer or your device or TuneIn app, you can do that. But I talk about a lot about what these guys talk about. Just in a nutshell, I was born in the 60s. I grew up mostly in the 70s and graduated high school in the early 80s. So that's the era that I grew up loving and talking about. And I've got bits and funny stuff, interviews. It's live radio. Things go wrong, things go right. It's all live and it's fun for 2 hours every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon Eastern. And this guy right over here, Pat McCormack, he appears on just about every episode with his golden rage of TV spots, talking about exactly a lot of what we were talking about tonight: television, the history of television, and what we love. It's BK on the air. So give me a listen. YouTube and all social media. Look me up, BK on the air.
Love it. Pat, you're up.
Oh man, how can I say this? Folks, you know these guys. I'm going to tell you, I have many friends, many. And those are the three best that I have. So that tells you something about how great these gentlemen are. And I'm talking from the inside out, as well as their knowledge and whatever you guys think of them, which I know you all love them, and it's true, and you should. My YouTube channel is Golden Rage of TV. Got plenty of content there. Podcast, Retro TV Radio, and I just released a new one, actually after a couple of technical blips, but I got the full Tina Cole interview from 93 Sons on, and then tomorrow I'm interviewing John Davy.
Wow.
Yes.
Captain Marvel.
Shazam.
The best.
That's awesome.
Captain
Yeah, the best. Captain Marvel, you're the best.
He's the best. So, anywhere podcasts are transmitted, you'll find Retro TV Radio. I'm out.
Links will be in the description field. They're not there right now, but they will be in the description field within the next hour or so, because I want you, if you haven't subscribed to these channels, if you haven't bookmarked Barry's radio program to listen on Saturday mornings, you really should, because these guys are the very best. I love Pat's interviews. I love Barry's radio show, and I love Bob's live streams. They're how I get myself through the week and how I feel connected to these fellers and to the community.
You're the best, Dave. You're the best, Dave.
Well, you guys are too kind. But it's really this community, right? It's this community that's the absolute best. I love them all dearly, and this little hobby of ours, and our love for all things nostalgia, the fact that it's connected us to so many wonderful people, really just it's such a blessing. So let's bring Fred Rogers on, and let's have him say it the way only Fred can.
You are special.
One of these three guys and each member of the community, you are all so truly special. Thanks for joining us tonight. It has been an absolute blast. I cannot wait for part 2, which will be equally delightful, and we'll definitely get it on the calendar in the next month or so. But thanks, folks, for joining. Guys, I've got to roll to a fantasy football draft. Hopefully I'm not number 1 on the draft order, because I'm a little bit late, but got to roll to that. So I'm going to just disconnect everything as soon as we're done here. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone out there in the chat. You guys all have a great night, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Love you all.
Love you all.